Hi everyone, I'm Harv, Ian Harvey, founder of Collective Intelligence, and this is Stuff That Matters Now. Welcome back everybody. I am in Pyro today and I'm with Clare Bradley from AgriSea. Good morning, Clare.
Morning, how are you, Harv?
I'm good.
Not too much traffic on the road to Pydal, middle of everywhere?
Look, I came down from Auckland this morning and came across the Hauraki Plains, and I haven't had that particular trip a lot. Come across from Hamilton, but not from Auckland. What a stunning unique piece of landscape the Hauraki Plains are.
Yeah, especially with the swamp in behind it and the kahikatea stands. It's a pretty special place.
It really is a special place, and it was just, and there's nothing else like it in New Zealand, is there?
No, I don't think so.
No. Yeah, it's very cool. So, Clare, thank you for your time this morning. I'm really looking forward to this, digging into your journey and the company's journey and where you're at. It's an interesting time for agriculture.
Yeah.
Interesting time for your company as well. So, Clare, let's kick off. Who are you? And who are you?
So I am a lady. I am 38. I was raised in Auckland, in between a couple of brothers either side of me. So I did my best to keep up with the boys at all chance. And I am married, work with my husband. I have 3 children who are part of our business as well. And I was also a surrogate, so I had twins for family members as well. So 5 children under the belt, really, growing them.
Did you have your 3 first?
Yeah. Yep.
And then who am I allowed to ask who you?
Yeah. So my older brother and his wife, they couldn't carry. She'd had cervical cancer, and so they sent over a couple of embryos from London. One survived the thaw process and turned into 2.
What's that like, Clare? What's it like carrying?
It's a lot of pressure. Yeah, because you're doing that for someone else. Yeah, so I was really conscious at all times. I was more wrapped in cotton wool when I was carrying someone else's children than I was my own. So, yeah, it was a lot of pressure, but it was a beautiful journey and one I would never regret.
So, Clare, they were in the UK.
Yep.
And so they sent them out. So they came out. Were they there for the birth?
Yes, so my sister-in-law came out 6 weeks beforehand, lived with me, helped kind of run my children around and be a part of our family, and then my brother came over as well, and they were there for the birth, and just was a C-section, so able to hand them straight on to their parents, and watch that beautiful family grow.
Fabulous. How long ago was that?
4 years. 4 years ago.
So recent history.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, Clare. That's a bonus for this interview.
Yeah, that came out of kind of nowhere. It wasn't really part of the interview.
Our pre. And Clare, look, this is. How would you describe your relationship with those children now?
So they live in London, which is hard. So I went to their christening for their 2nd birthday, and they were here just before COVID, so that was lovely. And you kind of expect, because you carried them, maybe they'll love you more than the rest of the family, but by all means they thought my children were the best, or actually Tani, my husband, they thought he was the best on the planet. They didn't really want too much to do with me, so I got over that. But they are. I love them just the same as my other nieces or nephews.
Right.
Yeah.
And how did your kids respond to this?
Yeah, so that was quite interesting. There's a lot of humour around it. I'd be heavily pregnant and in a small town. There's lots of talk, and so I strategically told the local hairdresser and anyone that I knew that the word would get out that actually when I was walking around not carrying children, that they didn't think anything else had happened. So Tani would often say, they'd say, "Oh, are you having another baby?" And they'd say, "No, they're her brothers." And, people would look at me with strange stares, and the kids were the same. Those are my cousins in Mum's tummy. So, I think the whole community, even their schools, learnt about what surrogacy was, and, it was a big learning curve for a lot of people, I think.
Was it hard to hand over the babies?
No. I mean, I didn't know it wouldn't be hard. So I studied biology at Auckland University, and I was, got my biologist hat on and went, they're the parasite and I'm the host, and that's a kind of the biological nature of it. But I was always in the back of my mind wondering when hormones and things take over, how that would be. There was no guarantee, but I was kind of prepared to talk it through, be open, talk to my brother, my sister-in-law, my husband, and everything was just on the table. So, in the end, it was absolutely fine. Yeah.
Okay, so shall we just end the podcast now? Because everything's going to be as boring as shit after this.
Not at all.
Claire, thank you for that, for sharing that. That's very cool. Very cool. Right. So we're at AgriSea.
Yes.
And you've got the new paint job. Since last time I was here, and I drove up this morning and went, wow, what a statement.
Yeah.
Stunning colours. It really stands out. So tell us what AgriSea is.
So AgriSea is a Māori-owned family business. We're a second generation now. So my husband, Tanya, and I run the business. The business has been going since 1996, so this year we're celebrating 25 years in business, and we manufacture products from seaweed. Those are mainly biostimulants instead of a fertilizer for use in land and plants. We also make products for animals, for honeybees. Increasingly we're getting into things for humans, alternative proteins, nanocellulose, a whole range of things, but seaweed is the core product that we use to create our products. Yeah.
So in 1996, what was the catalyst?
So Jill and Keith, the founders, were school teachers, and they say they kind of worked in children's prison, and they're just incredible thinkers. Like literally, my mother-in-law has to be the most amazing woman I've ever met in my life, and they actually went on a holiday, which was woofing, so willing workers on organic farms. Not the South Seas holidays that some people might imagine. But they came across a farm, and it was one of these fungal summers, and there was no kind of rots in the fruits. None of the animals had any signs of facial eczema. They just had deep green, healthy, and you kind of know it when you walk onto a really healthy, productive landscape. And their main input, they were a German couple, and their main input was seaweed.
Where was that farm?
Ortani, yeah. And so they were like, what on earth? Why on earth would people use, it was just kind of, and it's one of those things that once you know something, you can't unknow it. And it kind of sat in the back of their minds. And they started playing around with New Zealand seaweeds and researching seaweeds all around the world and discovering this incredible resource, or taonga.
Tell me about your mother-in-law. What makes her so cool?
She is the most generous person on this earth. I've had to stop complimenting her on her scarves because she'll take her clothes off and give them to you. She's just, I just feel really blessed that she's in my life and my children's life. She is warm. She is out of this world. She just does crazy things and is unapologetic for them, but all with so much love.
At the beginning you said AgriSea is a Māori business.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that so important?
It's something that is just in the DNA of how we behave as well. It's not necessarily just about the ownership structure. It's the values that we walk every day. It's how we treat our customers, our staff, our consumers. We don't do things if they're not good for people and planet. We just don't do them. So I think that comes from not only just a Māori or Indigenous mindset, but it's just who we are as a family as well.
And because this is not a video, so people can't see, but you're not Māori.
No.
And so coming into this family, was this a new thing for you? Was this, or what's it like for a white girl to move in?
So I grew up in Auckland, went to Epsom Girls. I had friends who lived in Remuera, and I called Manukau Manukau. Absolutely, that was the world that I was raised in. But my father was also very alternative, let's say. We were introduced to different religions, ways of being very early. But I also then went to work in the rainforest. So I did 2 years working in the Amazon rainforest, living with Indigenous communities there. It was supposed to be 5 weeks, and I ended up with an internship and a job. No running water, no power, nothing for 2 years.
Hang on, why did you go to not everybody just goes to the Amazon to hang out.
Yeah.
Why? What was the motivation? Like, what was in you to go and do that?
When people would ask you, what do you want to do when you grow up? I want to make a difference in the world. And people would laugh at you, think it's a pretty naive thing to say. The world's a big place, how can you make a difference? And so there I saw this thing about being a volunteer for 5 weeks. There was a bit of science with species inventory, and I loved science, but I didn't want to be not working with people as well. And so there was this community who had 53,000 hectares of pristine rainforest, and they wanted alternatives to selling to Shell Oil. So we were there to kind of work with them, look at setting up micro-enterprise, and it's kind of like, you're picking the fruits of the tree rather than chopping the whole forest down. And I got to do science at the same time, and I love adventure, so it was kind of a win-win.
What age were you then?
I was 19,
and
turning 20.
And what were you studying at the time?
Biology.
At where?
In Auckland, at Auckland Uni.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you had the science base, you had the adventure base, and so off you go to the rainforest.
Yeah. So it was just supposed to be 5 weeks. It was, had a return ticket, come home in 5 weeks' time, and I didn't want to come home. I really didn't want to come home.
How long did you stay?
2 years. And I only came home because I got a flesh-eating disease. So, I had this big weeping, smelly, rotting hole in my leg that needed chemotherapy to get rid of.
Right, and that was that a tropical thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, leishmaniasis.
Right.
Yeah.
That would have been a long trip home.
It was a long trip home, yeah, especially because I think the country at the time had ran out of aviation fuel, and so it took a couple and then we had to make an emergency landing in an oil field in the rainforest, and it was all, I thought, gosh, my time was up. Yeah, it was pretty hairy, but it was, we're still here.
Look, I'd imagine you must have got pretty sick through that.
Yeah.
Through that period.
Yeah.
And so, what impact did that experience have on you?
It gave me a real understanding of an Indigenous mindset of connection to land, to place, to the health and spirit of places and waters and ecosystems, and that nothing occurs in isolation, and that if you take something in or put something out, put something in or take something out of a system, there's ripples, and they are endless. Everything's affected. There's cascades of reactions and things that happen. So I really fell in love with Indigenous ways of thinking, and understood, how ecosystems kind of work.
So you come back here, get patched up.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that journey through the chemo with your leg?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't, it kind of feels like a blip in life, like it wasn't, I had a few kind of medical issues and was in hospital for a wee while and, yeah, had lines hanging out of my arms for a couple of months, but I got through that pretty unscathed, really.
Yep.
And I was just coming out and I met my husband now, Tani, but I'd already signed up for a new expedition in Costa Rica. And I thought, if I stay for him, I'll hold it against him forever. So I left, and the plan was that he would come and join me. But I actually found out a couple of days before I left that I was pregnant with our first child. So I still went and did 5 months in Costa Rica researching the effect of deforestation on jaguar diets. Basically, they all start eating all the turtles as they wash up or come in to lay their eggs because of the deforestation. They're getting pushed to the coast. Did that for 5 months and came home. Tani was still living with my mum. He kind of moved in pretty much the week after we met, and he wasn't going anywhere.
And what was he doing at that stage?
So he was taking a break from his family business, AgriSea, and was doing some marketing and stuff for like a dry cleaning company in Auckland. Yeah.
And that work you did in Costa Rica,
yeah,
what impact did that have on you? Because that's quite a different gig than what you had in Brazil.
Yeah. I also realised how lucky we are in New Zealand through both of those trips. There's a lot of corruption, and I'm not saying there's not any in New Zealand, but the fight was quite exhausting there when you're fighting big oil.
Yep.
It's a big fight.
Yep.
And you feel very small.
Yep.
And so I was quite tired of that, and I think kind of coming home was like, I can use this fight or I can use this stamina to make a difference in New Zealand.
Lots of, I was going to say, I'm going to use the word naivety, and I'm not even sure that's correct, but the person that left for your first tour of duty and coming back from your second, what was the change in you? Who was the person that came back?
There was quite a big, definitely a big change. That going away thinking I want to make a difference in the world, and also realising how hard it can be to make a difference in the world. That was definitely a big impact. And there was one time in the Amazon where it got really dark. We were about 5 k's from base camp. We'd been out all day, hot, sticky, covered in fire ants. It was, itching and scratching and burning, and it got really dark, and like the birds went crazy, and the skies just opened up with the most amazing tropical downpour, and I just felt so insignificant. I just felt like not even a speck or an ant in this world.
Yeah, you'd be washed away. And nobody would know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was quite a big realisation. And I guess you can, kind of look at that 2 ways, that you're insignificant, so what difference can you make? And you can get a bit downhearted about that. Or you can also think about how incredible this universe is, and that it's in you. You're a part of it. And so what you do matters.
Wish I could have videoed that face right now. Got it. It matters.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you came home.
Yeah.
Did you still like this fella?
I did. I loved that fella the moment I saw him.
And what did you love about him?
He is so brave, and not, I I don't know, sometimes we think of brave as being ready to go into battle or, you know, war or something like that. But he's so brave in himself. I always have said that I needed a man that was gentle enough to let me take the lead and strong enough in himself to, you know, support me too. And Tani is that. He is so, you know, people like to say in touch with their feminine side, or but he's just so open, he's so warm, and he's not afraid to show people his feelings, he's not afraid to be different, and he's always on his journey of self-improvement. Yeah.
And does he get that from his mother or father?
A bit of both, I think.
Of both?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the question was, tell me about AgriSea. So 1996.
Yeah.
You know, I was just thinking 1996, these two would have been regarded as nutters.
Yeah.
Absolute nutters.
Yeah. Complete green fringe hippies.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
School teachers.
Yeah.
They would have zero credibility.
Yep.
And I'd imagine not a lot of money.
No. So they sold their house to start this business, basically, and they talk about they just kind of looked at each other, held hands, and jumped off the cliff. Yeah, that's how the business was started, by jumping off a cliff.
That conviction must have been huge.
Yeah.
For them.
Yeah.
So they'd seen, and it must have embedded in them somewhere, what they'd seen was, this is where we want to take our lives. Yeah,
I think they saw something completely odd, they thought, and then after their own sort of research saw that, hey, maybe there's something here. And so they started, you know, creating products and killing a few plants and curing a few trees of brown rotten peaches in their own quarter-acre garden in Otahuhu in Auckland. So they just started playing around, basically. And then there was an old church in Morrinsville with a rose that needed saving, and, you know, someone had told someone, and so they sent down some product, and voila, this rose was saved. So then next it was the Parnell Rose Gardens in Auckland that wanted to start, you know, having some of this secret recipe product. And then I think the thing that made them jump off the cliff was when I think it was either an apple or kiwi fruit grower wanted 200 litres. And, you know, that, wow, do we even have that much product kind of made up? And they did, and it was just quite a turning point for them. And probably for two reasons. One was maybe this is a useful thing for producers of food rather than just roses or organic gardens or just veggie gardens at home. But they also then were very committed to proving the value of the product. So they started investing in research. So 1999, just 3 years after kind of starting the company, they first started 5 years of research into kiwi fruit orchards, because they knew themselves, they'd seen and witnessed the effect you can have in, you know, a home garden or a growing system like that, but a monoculture commercial growing system is quite different.
Yeah.
And so they've always said, if it doesn't work, we'll tip it out.
Were they still teaching at that stage, bringing in some cash?
No. They lived in the main street of Paidor in the back of a shop with no running hot water. They used a local pub for showers.
That's commitment. And belief.
Yeah.
And so, from there, today, describe AgriSea today, the company.
Yeah, so I think that the heart of that conviction is still there. And also they had fun. They had a hell of a lot of fun. And that's still here today too. You know, we laugh every day. Every single day we're laughing and having fun. And so today we've got about 33 staff across the country. we export to a whole lot of companies. We are really committed to helping our remote coastal communities build a seaweed industry for New Zealand. I guess there's so many things that are different in terms of the size and some of the innovations and research, but actually the heart of it's still the same. So a lot of it, it's I don't really want to talk about, how much we send to export and how much we, what number of farmers use it. And I don't know, that's a little bit boring sometimes. It's just the fact that we are still who we are. Yeah.
So to put a number on it, you're selling shitloads of this stuff now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So because, I'm surprised AgriSea has survived, because there's been a number of them in this seaweed space that haven't. Yep. We had some in the Manawatu too, and they copped, and I would imagine you guys did too, that copped a lot of ridicule.
Yep. That
it's muck and magic was our favourite term.
Yep.
So you would have gone through all that?
Absolutely.
Is it still there?
It is a little bit. But science is catching up to where we are and have been, and so we've got 7 peer-reviewed papers coming out this year. We're working with every university and CRI in this country. So we're starting to understand the benefits that not all seaweeds and not all seaweed products are the same. It's how you manufacture them. It's how you treat the resource. Is it a byproduct? Have you made 7 products for nutraceuticals, pharmaceuticals, cosmeceuticals, food ingredients, and then you're selling farmers the shit that's left over? So there's a lot of that. Powdered byproducts that are imported into New Zealand that are soluble. The fact that they're soluble means a whole lot of good stuff's gone.
Right.
So yes, there's still some difficulty in a seaweed message, but the science is also showing when you've got good manufacturing processes, you're actually utilising the good bioactives, that things are highly effective in very small doses.
Apart from having fun and good values, what is the thing that makes AgriSea special?
Our main focus and reason for being is to improve the health of our environment for our future generations. That's what we're here to do.
Which then goes back to being a Māori-based business, which is about being a good ancestor and the future-proof stuff. Yeah,
absolutely.
Recently, I think this week, I heard there was an announcement with the waterways of Hauraki, the Hauraki Gulf. Yeah. Because it's quite interesting that you're based in Hauraki with all this water, and the Hauraki Gulf has got lots of problems, lots of iwi. Yeah. Have you been involved in any of that?
Yeah, I think we take a view of where we're looking after the ridge through to the reef. So what we use seaweed for is on land applications, but that has beneficial effects all the way down to the reef by either reduction of synthetic fertilizers and those sorts of things. So we feel we can make a difference at the beachfront, at the Te Kapa Moana in the water, but we can also make a difference on the land that feeds down there. We've also got a couple of projects that we're involved with, big collectives, looking at being able to seaweed farm in the Hauraki Gulf. It is one of the best carbon sinks in the world. It is basically like reforesting what we're trying to do, but also create this micro-industry of seaweed farmers to use this resource for a whole range of beneficial applications as well.
It is I have seen videos and data and stuff on these carbon sinks that seaweed can create. It's quite something, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
How big an area are we talking? Like, how big is a seaweed farm?
So I think we, to start off with, we're doing a bit of pilot stuff because we've got to get the science of how to seed it, how to grow it, vertical ropes, horizontal ropes, all the, what structures, can we just plant it? A whole lot of science has been done this summer to start off the project. But if we can think of using mussel line structure that's already there and just sowing another crop with the mussels, so we're getting kind of the diversity into our ocean farming.
I saw that recently on Country Calendar, I think. And the guy was harvesting mussels and cutting the seaweed off at the same time.
Yep, so that would be the Undaria or wakame, which is the invasive species. So they call it the gorse of the sea for a reason.
That was it?
Yeah.
Right.
It grows like wildfire, that stuff.
Yeah. And you were saying, this stuff is a weed and we're trying to. I don't think they'd worked out exactly how to utilise it yet.
Yeah.
So you're not talking about that weed. You're talking about a specialist crop.
Yeah.
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 And so that will sink carbon, but you utilise that seaweed?
Some of it, yeah. We don't have to utilise all of it. So we're looking at things like blue carbon markets as well as, being able to kind of pluck the pieces that you want. And then we've got another on-land aquaculture fund that's just started at the end near the Firth of Thames as well. And so on that one, we are taking some of the water as it's coming out into the Gulf and using all the nitrogen and phosphorus in there to grow the seaweed and then pushing the water out clean. So we can, at a hectare level, we can pull out 12 tonne of nitrate per year on 1 hectare of growing, about 60 tonne of dry weight of a different sort of seaweed.
And you talk about plucking the seaweed, because I've seen you guys harvest.
Yeah.
It's pretty delicate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't what I was expecting. I was expecting, machines and stuff. And So tell us about the plucking of how you harvest seaweed.
Yeah. So beach cast is our main source of seaweed, and it is people plucking pieces of seaweed off the beach. It is not done by machine, or we don't take all the seaweed on the beach because we understand there's a whole other ecosystem on the beach. There's sandhoppers, there's another life, and that's another habitat for other life forms. So I guess it's that intergenerational viewpoint, it's that Māori viewpoint, it's the understanding that not to do harm. So, yes, there's an abundance of something washed up on the beach. Let's use the best of it, the best quality, and let's leave the rest for the rest of the ecosystem. It's just kind of not being selfish and not being a dick, really.
Yeah. Okay. Was that?
Gotta make sense.
Was that saying halve? Don't be a dick. Okay. It's because I was surprised when I saw a video of you guys harvesting.
Yeah.
And I went, what's this? You look like beachcombers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was going, this is not very industrial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be industrial or take everything to make a good business. We've got to get away from this idea that it's economy or environment. Yeah. It just, we have to stop that sort of line of thinking. They are not two sides of the same coin.
And then how do you fund your research and development?
I think of my mother-in-law when you asked me that, and it's the fact that we don't have beamers and boats and batches. That everything that AgriSea does goes back into the business, and that has always been kind of the early mindset of don't worry about the barriers, let's just get on and do it. But in the last 5 years, we've been able to start accessing funding from the likes of Callaghan Innovation, SFFF, through the Ministry of Primary Industries, BPA, which is Bioprocessing Alliance, for making high-value stuff out of our waste stream. So, yeah, the key was getting on that funding wheel. That was the real challenge. Yep.
And, because all resources are limited, right,
yep.
in that space. as you've gone from being the marginal wackos
Yeah.
to almost into the mainstream now, aren't you?
Yeah.
How have you responded to that? And what I'm meaning is, you know, some people are quite happy being on the fringe. You know, hippies protesting in the 60s and so forth, and then they grow up and then go, how do we be now that we've grown up?
Yeah.
Because you guys are starting to grow up now,
Yeah.
right?
I think for us, we've always wanted to make impact. So the fact that we are mainstreaming, or, you know, we had this thing, Mainstream 2020 was our kind of goal. And so at the end of 2020, we signed up with FarmSource to distribute nationwide through FarmSource stores. So that was quite a, does that mean we're mainstream now? But it's actually about...
And just explain what FarmSource is.
So FarmSource is the retailer arm of Fonterra. So 68 stores nationwide. Most farmers will pop in there and pick up their fertilizer, their seed, their animal health gear, everything. It's like the supermarket for farmers. Yep.
So it means that Fonterra is sort of okay with you guys?
Yeah, well, I mean, they've used it on their Hamilton home farm. We've got some Landcorp farms that use it. And it's, you know, it's one of those things. We had a trial farm, and they popped up an AgriSea sign, and he got a bit of ridicule at the cricket club for a wee while. But the fact that now he's got time to go fishing, he's living his best life there, you know, starting to kind of reconsider the ridicule. But yeah, that the question around mainstream is about if we can get it more accessible to people, if we can help make a difference on farm for their own business, and plus the environmental stuff on top of it, then that's what we're going to try and do. And so for us, FarmSource was a good strategy to help make better impact.
So this is not a fertilizer.
No.
So because lots of people listening to this are not farmers. So what is a fertilizer?
So a fertilizer needs to have a certain amount of nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium mainly, to add a nutrient into the system.
Okay. And those fertilisers are accessed from where?
So they can be accessed from a range of places. There are two big companies in New Zealand, Ravensdown and Balance, that are the biggest fertiliser companies, but there's lots of small players as well.
And so those ingredients would be mined from somewhere?
Yep, so that's quite a contentious issue. The phosphate rock is mined out of Western Sahara, but bought from Morocco, so it's disputed land. It's one of the biggest refugee camps on this planet. So that's a huge humanitarian issue. They call it blood phosphate.
Yep.
And so it comes to New Zealand, and then we kind of put a whole lot of chemicals and turn it into superphosphate.
But it's okay once it's here, because we don't have to worry about that shit over there, right?
Yeah.
That's a long way away.
Except consumers increasingly do want to know. They want to know exactly the supply chain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tricky. So you guys don't... So seaweed is not a fertiliser. No. What is it?
It's in its own class called a biostimulant. So bio is like anything that's kind of natural, like biology or things like that. We're dealing with natural systems, and stimulant means to stimulate.
What does it stimulate?
So it stimulates processes within a plant, rather than like a fertilizer will bring food to a root system, whereas a biostimulant will stimulate communication with microbes to bring the food or the nutrients that are already there to the plant.
How the fuck do you know that? Seriously. I mean, how do you work that out?
Yeah. Well, I think it's there's a lot of reading, a lot of science. There's the World Biostimulant Congress now. It's an industry that's taking off around the world. As farmers, consumers, all of us look to actually how can we create businesses of creating food with less degradation on our environment.
So you're telling me you can stimulate the plant so they can access more nutrients out of the soil.
Yeah.
And which means what? You don't have to put the fertilizer on, or less fertilizer?
Yep, much less. And there's some fertilizers you can... We're still learning, like we're kind of 6 years of no phosphate going onto one farm, for example, and we still have really good available phosphate levels. So we're testing out some of those strongly held beliefs and really testing those out. But nitrogen is definitely one that you need to ease off. It's like the plants are almost addicted to it. They're basically, it's like you've fed it to me my whole life, and now I have to go and get my own. And they kind of, struggle. So it's a reduction of 25% over time. But phosphate, we're kind of turning it off immediately in terms of the application, and very quickly things like mycorrhizal fungi and things in the soil start pulling their weight.
And economically?
Huge difference. And it's not, like this is the ecosystem thing again. A farm is an ecosystem. And so if we look at putting on nitrogen fertilizer, we know we get more dry matter. But does that,
And dry matter is more grass?
More grass.
Yep.
More grass. But what is happening to the root system of the plant, so that when we get a summer drought, does it fall over because you've shortened the root system? What happens to the animal health?
So just to be clear, you shorten the root system because the roots don't have to go far to find the nutrients.
That's right.
Because they come in from the top.
Yes.
And so they're up the top, and the roots can get whatever they want. The plant can get along the surface.
Yep. So, when we look at things in a reductionist way, like put nitrogen on, get more grass, that stacks up. But when we look at the farm as an ecosystem, so we consider things like the root length and the resilience in drought or floods, and we look at things like the animal health, that over too much nitrogen or protein going through the animal, and it's just flying out the back of the animal, where it should be a nice solid stool. When you consider all of the ecosystem, the farm ecosystem as a system, it doesn't necessarily stack up. So when you start reducing those inputs and seeing the benefits through not only just what you're producing in terms of what the animal's eating or grass, but the effects on the animal health bills, the vet bills. And over the 6 years when we've done this research, it came in at half the cost. And then you got the added benefits with the animal health.
Why is the animal health affected?
Because they are getting better quality feed.
Why?
Because they're not getting fed over-fertilised grass that has nitrogen elongates cells.
Mm-hmm.
So you get tall grass, but it doesn't seem to have as much guts or metabolizable energy or the good stuff, all the micronutrients that we all need, let alone animals.
It looks good though.
Looks can be deceiving.
So then these trials, so you've been going 6 years.
Yeah, on this one farm in particular that I'm kind of referring to.
And who's doing the measurements?
So it was set up by a lady called Dr. Christine Jones, who's an international kind of soil carbon expert.
She's Australian, isn't she?
She is Australian.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Hard to find the perfect woman.
She's pretty awesome. So it was set up with her and some farmers and myself. And funnily enough, we know that you can alter soil test measurements if you do them wrong. By that I mean you can go into one paddock, take an area, it's never uniform, we're talking about nature, and you can go into an area of the paddock that looks really bad and take a whole lot of soil samples, and then, it basically says you need some fertilizer. Sale, right? So we know that you can alter fertilizer application recommendations based on bad soil testing. So every time I have gone out to this farm, twice a year, GPS, same spot, soil testing, I've taken someone different with me. Because I never wanted anyone to say to me, oh, you must have gone to a bad area of the paddock and taken
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Yep.
That was quite important for me because I've been at Fertilizer and Lime conferences and I've heard people talk about
Right.
that sort of stuff.
And that bias that creeps in, right?
In some countries, it is illegal for fertilizer companies to take soil samples. And every chance I get, I'll be teaching farmers how to do their own. They need to hold the power.
It's an interesting relationship because, I farmed for 30 years and it's really easy to become isolated. And then, farmers are interesting because 80% of the people that drive up their drive want to sell them something.
Yeah.
And they are very good at pissing in farmers' pockets.
Yeah.
And that's not good for the farmer because sometimes I believe that has the impact of farmers getting a slightly rosy picture of themselves because everybody that they talk to is pissing in their pockets. And I can say that because I was one of them.
Yeah.
And you don't realise it until you leave farming, and that doesn't happen nearly as much as in other industries. But it's that I don't think that when you become dependent on other people, you don't know it's happened because it happens slowly, and then you become dependent for other people for information.
And farmers have got a lot to juggle. They've got so if there's one thing that they don't have to worry about, someone else can take the stress,
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Cool. Can do that. Doesn't cost me anything.
Yep.
Right? Because it cost us somewhere else. Come and do that for me. Brilliant.
Yep.
Come back and there you go. You've got
But maybe it's the regional councils or, someone's got to take some leadership in that space. Someone's got to take 51% of our farms, Ministry for Environment, are far beyond where they need to be in terms of a phosphate reading. It's bad for the environment. It's bad for farmers' pockets. It's bad for the Western Saharians. We just need some better truth in the matter.
Yeah. And, I'm really interested in equations and changing the equation because using, say, nitrogen and you get this effect, right? And if you have a really simple equation, it is compelling, right? You go, boom, how do you beat that? And then you increase the equation and put a few more measurements around it and you start increasing it and so on. The big plus then becomes, not so flash.
Yes.
And superphosphate would be the same.
Yeah.
So what are your biggest challenges now with the business? Actually, what do you do in the business? What's your role?
I think probably being a family business, you wear lots of hats often. Sometimes experts always tell us that we need very clearly defined roles and stuff, and Tani's going, we're a smoothie. But generally, I look after the research and development and finance, and a whole range of other stuff.
Smoothie, I like that.
Yeah.
So you'd have to have job descriptions?
Yeah, somewhere.
Yeah. And that's to keep the lawyers or something happy?
Yeah, I guess it's more that, so it's more sometimes it's to keep external people happy. Yes, absolutely. They want to see a title and what you do and that they're talking to the right person. But, just because I'm in it says that I'm the GM for research, development and science or something, Tani equally will take research projects, or it doesn't mean that, we don't ring fence, I guess. Yeah, so it is a bit of a smoothie at
So
times.
if I came and work for you guys, do I get a job description?
Yes, you do get a job description.
And I get that to please the Department of Labour.
It's something that we work on together with our staff. So you don't get given a job description, it's created with you. So it's about you reaching your job satisfaction as well as what functions need to happen. So it's a process that we go through together. So I've just hired a new research technician recently, and that, a lot of it comes down to just communication and expectations. And the expectations are, yes, you're the research technician, but you're also expected to help wash the dishes when we've got a big hui of 80 people here. It's like the fluidity and what you may be doing. And it doesn't work for everyone either. And so when we're hiring, we're very honest. I actually said to her, so what would you do if Tane said we're going to Mars? How would you handle that? Because, sometimes you get thrown things out of left field that are innovative, that are different. You think, what on earth are we doing this for?
Yep.
And how would you handle that?
Yeah.
So it's very much honesty about who we are, how we operate.
What sort of answer are you looking for? What sort of response when you ask a question like that?
In that, because you need a whole lot of different moving parts in a business and a whole lot of diversity of thinking. We can't have everyone wanting to fly to Mars and knowing how to build a rocket. So for that person, I was wanting someone with some structure. So, her kind of thought process was, why are we flying to Mars? Has anyone else flown to Mars before? What were the learnings that we could take from that? Yeah.
Right. In a different role, you'd want a slightly different answer.
Yeah.
Right. And what's your staff retention like?
Pretty good when we get the culture fit. So we have people who have been here for 15 years. We've got someone who left recently of 15 years. They still came to Tane's 40th birthday. We've got people who worked for us, for 10 years. They still call in. I think we've got about 4 people who've been here for 10 years at the moment. And sometimes we've got people who are here for a short time, and that's either because the culture didn't fit them. That's generally why. Yeah, it's not a long term.
And as you grow, people that will become less and less because people will understand you guys more when you come in.
Yep. And we're getting braver at saying who we are. Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I think it's that the battering that we've had of being a snake oil, or you're just hocus pocus, or. And while we've always had this conviction, we haven't necessarily always been brave enough to communicate it. And sometimes it's not bravery, it's about being humble as well, like kind of trying to find the right mix. You look at how Americans sell versus how New Zealanders do, and, it's kind of chalk and cheese. So, it's not saying that we want to, stand up from the rooftops, but it's also being more comfortable in that uncomfortable space.
How did they keep going through those early years? And I'm going to guess maybe 10 or 15 of those years.
Yeah.
How did they keep going?
Yeah, I think it took 10 years to make a profit. It took them 10 years of putting their heart and soul. And when you know that you're doing a good thing, that you're helping people, that you're actually achieving what you've set out to do in this world, nothing can stop you. Nothing can stop you.
And how do you know that you're doing the right thing?
You feel it. You feel it. And there are times that you question yourself, that we're doing it a bit differently than others. Yeah, we're sitting on the outside sometimes. And do we need a change to, fit their mould? And it's coming back to what we value as people, as a family, as a company, as our family, as a company, and just sitting through those values and going, no, this is the way that we do it. You know, I have a sign in my office that said, we do business differently. And again, it's just, that's okay. That's okay.
What's been your biggest challenge?
Probably trusting myself. Yep. Trusting that I do have something to offer, and trusting that I've also got people around me to help me when I'm unsure, and learning to lean into those people or networks, that you don't have to do everything on your own. Yeah, I mean, the imposter syndrome is massive. You know, I recently someone had shoulder tapped me to sit, I want to sit on this Our Land and Water working group. I thought, oh gosh, there'll be incredibly smart, talented, amazing people out there. And Tanya, he's my biggest supporter. He's always pushing me out the front. And so I applied, and they said they had 39 applicants or something, and yeah, they chose me. I thought, gosh, they must have got something wrong. Went to the first meeting, and I was very scared, very shy, thinking, gosh, these people are going to know so much, and I don't know anything. So yeah, but you've got to be brave to put yourself out there too. You've got to take those risks. You just got to say, okay, all right, I don't think I'm up for it. I'm going to give it a go. And yeah, often I'm surprised that there is stuff sitting in there that I can contribute.
The imposter syndrome, it's a magnificent thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a magnificent thing.
Yeah.
What happens if they find out?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know this shit.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really cool message, because there'll be lots of people looking at you, whether you like it or not, going, man, she's got it together. Look at Claire, she's just awesome, and it's good to know that Claire doesn't always have it together.
Hell no.
and because it's I think it's a debilitating thing, and one day I'm going to write a book, and it will be entitled "Nobody's Got Their Shit Together," and that's okay. Yeah. Because with our work with collective intelligence, we've never met one. and the ones that put on the most wonderful facade are the ones that have got it together least of all. Yeah. Because that shiny facade is a thing of, is to protect themselves. Yeah.
And it's very fragile.
Yep. And the fragility can turn up as bullying.
Yeah.
And all sorts of, and you see it in the ag sector.
Yeah.
With some people with really high profiles who are really threatened because the world is changing, and the old paradigm that they have, that served them really well, is not holding water anymore.
Mm-hmm. And I think I always want to be on the right side of history. Like if you look years away, and we can see that we've got things like climate change and the environment and how we treat people, and there's all these issues. So I want to spend my time working on how to help those things, not fight them.
What happens? How do you cope with getting information going on the wrong track here?
Can you say that again?
How do you cope? So, when you're experimenting with different stuff, there would be times you're on the wrong track.
Yeah.
How do you cope with that?
Yeah, I don't think it bothers us. It doesn't bother us at all. It's like, oh, that didn't work. Okay, what's next?
Right. That's how you cope with it.
Yep.
Yep.
What did we learn from that?
Yep. Yep. Because I'm guessing there have been times in every industry where somebody set out with, well, no, actually I know this is the case. People set out to prove something, get halfway through and go, actually we're on the wrong track, but we're going to carry on with this and get an outcome because there's so much money depends on this. There's been lots of examples in that space. So it's just, okay, we're on the wrong track here. What's there to learn?
Yep.
Regroup.
Yep.
And let's look at what next. Yep.
Yep.
It was interesting seeing you processing that, right, and then going, and then bounce out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was trying to figure out what is wrong with, how do we cope with it? There is,
Yeah, it was interesting to watch you just, process that. So what's next for you guys? Where are you heading?
We are heading to a future where remote coastal communities are well looked after, have thriving seaweed industries that we can help enable innovation in these spaces and have seaweed as a new industry that is based on circular economy, adding value, doing good in the world, being good citizens, being good kaitiaki. So that's where we're trying to go. And we're doing things to help get us there by partnering with awesome people who have similar value sets to create new products out of waste streams. So nanocellulose hydrogels is something we're creating with an awesome team at Scion that actually started after a wine and an awards ceremony, then turned into this kind of multi-million-dollar smart ideas project. But it's everything for us starts with kind of a matched values or vision for a better world.
That sounds pretty interesting. And you talked about the remote coastal areas.
Yep.
Specifically.
Yep.
What's with that?
So places like the East Cape, Northland. East Cape, their average income is $16,000 a year. They have incredible landscapes, environment, resources, but there are also many people in those spaces are not in an extraction sort of mindset. It's not create money at the detriment of the environment. So trying to build up those areas that they can create opportunity while looking after their environment and resources.
So that's a totally different gig again, Claire, isn't it? Because then you're actually targeting social change in communities, in remote communities.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a. Do you have a different division in the business for that, or is that just something wrapped up in what you do?
Yeah, that's wrapped up in what we do. Absolutely wrapped up in what we do. If we just wanted to be a seaweed company selling into agriculture, we could bring in the crappy imported powder. And people say if resources one of the constraints you have for growing a business, then we could import crap from all around the world.
Yep.
But that's not what we're here to do.
And so do you need to push into those remote coastal areas? Do you need the demand of the product first? What's the limiting factors of going there?
So it is a bit chicken and egg because, we have kind of big export potential and we have to hold that off because we don't have secure supply chain of seaweed. So that's why we're investing in things like starting to farm seaweed, grow seaweed, aquaculture, as well as establish really good remote coastal connections and economies around just the collection of it. But it's after storms, right? So when everyone's in summer holiday, we're kind of praying for and hoping for cyclones, so we're not that popular. But so it is a bit chicken and egg. Everything has to be developed at the same time. So developing the market and speed with the resource.
And the local people getting up to speed.
Yes. Yeah, so Tane's got quite a few kind of projects in that space. That's one of his babies. He's looking at getting off the ground around some of the remote coastal community development.
Look, it's fascinating how poor some areas of New Zealand are. You know, it's just totally unacceptable, but it is quite. We visited a iwi as part of Collective Intelligence some years ago, and the CEO was telling us that the average income per household of the iwi was 18 grand per household, and it was hard. Yeah, it was fascinating just to try and comprehend that, and that a lot of those people would not accept the benefit because it was not something that was part of their culture or they wanted to access. And that was a bit of a shock to me. In a country that's got so much abundance in other areas that we have those problems.
And I think the other end of the spectrum is, I mean, you know, like, people don't need that much money. You know, like, at the other end of the spectrum, it's crazy. Like, what do you even do with it all?
850 billionaires in the United States.
Wow.
And, you know, I think that is a sign of a very poor ecosystem.
Very poor ecosystem.
Right, where it's not working.
No.
Right,
No.
and so lots of people see that as being this wonderful thing that they have got 850 billionaires. I'm going, that's just sick.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
that is broken.
Yeah.
And yeah. Anyway, we're slightly off topic. So I'm really interested. What I've loved about this interview, Claire, is I have learned a lot about what you guys are up to. Yeah, and I'm really interested in the social aspect targeting. Of course, I shouldn't be surprised being a Māori business, right? And I'm thinking what impact that could have on those outer regions.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, what's flourishing there are some of the gangs are flourishing there because nobody else is in that space. Claire, what?
Sometimes out of our biggest problems are our biggest opportunities too, right? So, you know, we can look at things like the degradation of our environment, but as a food-producing country, we can use that as an opportunity to turn that around and you know, show the world that we can do it differently. And same with our, you know, remote communities where there's a real a problem. You've got the ability to make the most impact. So isn't that a great thing that you can go and do?
It's a really good space to sort of round the conversation off, Claire. Is there anything else? Is there something we've missed, or is something that you want to finish on at this point?
I think we may have covered it all, actually, half.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You happy?
I'm happy.
Claire, thank you for your time.
Oh, you're welcome.
Keep up the good work. And I'm really interested in this project on the coastal areas. That's really got my imagination going. Yeah. Good luck.
Thank you.
You've just been listening to an episode of Stuff That Matters Now, brought to you by Collective Intelligence. I hope you enjoyed listening to the fun stuff, the rugged stuff, and the complete stuff-ups that have helped this particular Collective Intelligence member evolve while making the world a better place. Do check out our Stuff That Matters Now podcast series on your favourite podcast provider, or visit our website www.collectiveintelligence.co.nz to get links to new episodes. Contact us if you want to learn more about how we can help you evolve yourself and others. Thanks for listening.